Hi, welcome to part 1 of our study series titled The Commandments of the Lamb. Jesus said that if we love Him, then we're to follow His commands. So I started this video series so that we can take a deeper dive into what His commands actually are. Here are 4 of the commands that we'll be going over during this video. Love God with every part of your being. Love others as you love yourself. Forgive others of their trespasses. Love your enemies. Love God with every part of your being. In Mark chapter 12, Jesus just finishes answering the Pharisees about giving tribute to Caesar, and he also answers the Sadducees about marriage during the resurrection. And there was a scribe who witnessed Jesus in all of this, and he saw that Jesus knew what he was talking about. So the scribe went on to ask Jesus what he thought was the greatest commandment of all the commandments. And the Lord replied with this, "And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. This is the first commandment." To Jesus, there's nothing more important than loving God. We're to set the affections and the emotions of our hearts upon God, and to dedicate every thought and every portion of our strength to the obedience of God's commands. God should be the foundation of every thought that we take and of every decision that we make throughout every part of our day. We can't just express our love through words or through weekly church attendance, but it has to show in our thoughts, in our affection, in our action, in our conduct, and in our restraint. Love others as you love yourself. After Jesus shared this first commandment, he then goes on to add on to it a second commandment. And the second, like it, is this: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these. As truly and as sincerely as we love ourselves, we must demonstrate this same manner of genuine care, this same manner of concern and love for others. All of our hearts are fashioned alike, and we were all created by the same Creator. And here's another verse to support what Jesus stated. Therefore, whatsoever you want men to do to you, do also to them. For this is the law and the prophets. So love God with every part of your being, and love others as you love yourself, and treat others the way that you'd want to be treated. Forgive others of their trespasses. Mark 11, verse 25 through 26. And whenever you stand praying, if you have anything against anyone, forgive him, that your Father in heaven may also forgive you of your trespasses. But if you do not forgive, neither will your Father in heaven forgive your trespasses. Forgive everyone of their offenses against you. Don't hold on to any grudges, and don't hold anything above anyone's head. And as you forgive others, so also will God forgive you. Matthew 18, verses 21 through 22. Then Peter came to him and said, Lord, how often shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? Up to 7 times? Jesus said to him, I do not say to you up to 7 times, but up to 70 times 7. There's a parable that Jesus tells called the parable of the unforgiving servant. And I'm going to summarize it because at the end, Jesus makes a pretty heavy statement that a lot of us like to skip over. So there was a king, and the king had a servant that owed him a lot of money. But this servant didn't have enough to pay him back. So the king ordered for the servant for the servant's family and for everything that that servant owned to be sold so that the king can get back what was owed. The servant then dropped down in front of the king, begging him and pleading with him to have patience, and he's promising the king that everything that he owes will be paid off. The king, then moved with compassion, forgives the servant, and he lets him go, and he forgave him of all the debt. This servant then goes to another servant that owes him money, and he grabs him by the neck and he chokes him, demanding for him to pay him of his money. The other servant then drops down and begs him to have patience with him, and he promises that he'll pay back everything that's owed. But this first servant wouldn't have patience, and he cast him into prison. A few witnesses saw everything, and they went back and they told the king what the first servant did to the second one. And the king was very, very angry, and he called that first servant over. The king then said to the first servant, "I forgave you of all of your debt. Shouldn't you have had compassion on the other servant as I have had compassion on you?" The king was furious, and he delivered that servant to be tortured until all that he owed was paid off. And this is what Jesus said at the end of this parable. "And his master was angry and delivered him to the torturers until he should pay all that was due to him. So likewise shall my heavenly Father also do to you, if each of you from your heart does not forgive his brother of his trespasses." Jesus literally says that if we do not forgive others with our hearts, that God will deliver us to be tortured, just as the king delivered his servant to be tortured. Love your enemies. Matthew chapter 5, verses 43 to 48. You have heard that it was said, "You shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy." But I say to you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them who spitefully use you and persecute you, that you may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For he makes his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. For if you love those who love you, what reward have you? Don't even the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet your brethren only, what do you do more than others? Don't even the tax collectors do so? Therefore, be perfect, just as your Father, which is in heaven, is perfect. Jesus isn't impressed by us loving on our friends and on our families. He states that even the evil and the wicked people know how to do that. And if the wicked know how to treat their loved ones with honor and with respect, then what more are we doing than them? Jesus wants us to treat our enemies with the same manner and respect as we would our loved ones. And by loving our enemies, we become more and more like God, who, as Jesus states, gives light and gives rain to both the good and the evil. And he provides for those that love him and for those that hate him. Thanks again for your time, and thank you for your support. And if you've made it this far, please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already yet. Check out our website, letterstothelord.org, and stay tuned for the next study.